Couples, today I wanted to talk for a few minutes about this idea of being gracious toward one another. And I think the best thing to do is to define it first, because that word I know we've all probably heard it and probably used it in our vernacular, but we don't necessarily know what it means. So the definition I'm giving it today is giving a gift to someone that is unmerited or undeserved. So I want to take a few minutes to look at how God led the way and really set the tone for us in that. When we look at Romans chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." This idea that our salvation was a gift that was unmerited and undeserved because Christ died while we were still sinners. None of us had earned that or had deserved that in any way. And so that's the concept we want to bring into marriage and into our relationships and think, to be gracious to one another doesn't mean they've earned it or they deserve it, but it's what we choose because God already set the tone for what that looks like. The next thing is that he, in his attitude also, is to be gracious toward his people. We see in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 18, it says, "Therefore the Lord waits to be gracious to you, and therefore he exalts himself to show mercy to you." And in another translation, it says, God longs to be gracious to us. I don't know about you, but that's a pretty amazing concept that not only has God been gracious in extending the gift of salvation, but also in his attitude in our day-to-day failings and ups and downs, he still longs to be gracious to us. So I want us to look at that then in our marriages and say, how can I be gracious toward my spouse? What would it look like for me to extend the gift that is unmerited or undeserved, but that our attitude, like God's, would be, even though you don't deserve it, I'm going to wait for the opportunity to choose to be gracious toward you. So here's a couple of thoughts that I put together then in order to be gracious to your spouse, that you would choose to be patient when they mess up. We're all going to mess up and we're going to make mistakes. What a gift to extend to your spouse, that when they make a mistake or it's a missed expectation, that you'd say, you know what, it's okay. We'll do better next time. We can talk about it and we're going to move on, and I'm going to choose to be patient in that. Another way is choosing to be understanding. We all have our ups and our downs and our pros and our cons and our personality, and sometimes we are going to mess up. Sometimes we're going to be in a bad mood. Sometimes we're going to be lazy. That the gift you could give to your spouse in those moments is to say, I'm going to be understanding. It's been a long week at work, or the kids have been driving you crazy. Just giving the gift even though they haven't deserved it or earned it. And then also just choosing to extend second, third, and fourth chances, really when it comes to missed expectations or when things aren't going the way you want them to go, that you would give your spouse another chance to do it right the next time. I'm not saying your spouse gets to take advantage of that, but in your own heart that you would choose to be gracious, to extend that gift and to say, we'll keep working at it. Maybe next time it'll be a little bit better. We'll get 20% better, 30% better. But having that attitude of recognizing neither of us are going to be perfect at this all the time, and I choose to give you the gift of grace. So here's a couple questions to ponder today. Identify an area that you have conflict and look for ways to be gracious towards one another. And once you do that, really kind of take a few minutes to think, what effect could that really have on our relationship if we choose to be gracious to one another instead of beating down on the things that we're constantly disappointed in or being critical of one another? So choose to be gracious today, and let's see what effect that could have on your relationship.